Some of the hiring trends that we're seeing, or some of the emerging roles in luxury marketing, are partnership marketing, integrated marketing, and affiliate marketing. And so, just to talk quickly about what those are and what that means, partnership marketing really is kind of this newfound term for something that's been around a long time, business development. So, a lot of brands are really thinking about ways to find linked synergies or alignments with other brands that make the most sense and have a similar customer base, or maybe similar customer profile and behavior. And they're creating partnership opportunities to make, optimize reach for both of those brands. So, for example, as I mentioned earlier, when I was with Rent the Runway, I did a partnership with 17 Magazine centered around prom. And so that was a partnership where we created at Rent the Runway a digital lookbook where we featured certain designers and certain styles, and we, created a whole experience around prom shopping. And we thought 17 Magazine was the perfect partner to do that with. And so we had looks that, they also sort of weighed in on creating, leveraging the insights, knowing the teenage customer very well. We helped them promote 17 Magazine subscriptions, and then they helped promote the lookbook. We also partnered with them on a sweepstakes so that there was this ultimate prom giveaway where, some group of girls would win free rentals or dresses to wear to prom. So things like that. And you see a number of different partnerships at play, whether it's Sephora doing collections for Shopbop, which is a brand that normally doesn't sell beauty, but, was able to move into the beauty space with Sephora. Net-a-Porter recently launched beauty, but a number of years ago, they actually did editorial campaigns with Estee Lauder. So those are some of the examples of partnership marketing. But at its core, it's really business development or new business development, and thinking about ways to create partnerships to either create new revenue streams or to expand the reach that you have to different customers. Integrated marketing is a term that you often find in the publishing space. So, for example, at Vogue or at Glamour or at GQ, an integrated marketing position is one that is internally thinking about some of the ways that they can create, and it's more in the digital space, the ways they can create campaigns or online stories or events to help drive revenue for their advertisers. So, Elle Magazine might do a campaign with Estee Lauder that's all around the Pure Color makeup franchise, and it feels very editorial in nature, but the ultimate goal is to really integrate some of the efforts that they're doing maybe in print, or even some of the advertising that they're running, display advertising on their website. And then affiliate marketing is often linked very closely to SEO, SEM, and display advertising. And affiliate marketing is really a job that's responsible for managing a brand's affiliates that might sign up to show their display advertising. This is often the case with blogs. So you might find that a blog has signed up to be an affiliate to a brand, and you're seeing that brand's advertising or display advertising on the site. Usually affiliate marketing team members will work with those partners to ensure that they have the right creative for the affiliates to use, that it's updated as much as the marketing team requires, and that it's reflecting any of the new product strategies or brand strategies that are relevant to the brand at that time. And so as we think about how you can really position yourself for these roles, some of the trends that we're seeing and what companies are looking for, and I know this was a question for many of you that you sent in, cross-functional team experience is really something that you can gain despite the industry that you might come from. But it's really important because, as I mentioned earlier, as a marketer, whether you're online, offline, you're doing product marketing or traditional brand management, or if you're doing CRM, you're often working with a number of teams to really build or support that marketing strategy. So it's really important that you can communicate with those team members, sort of speak their language. It's also important to be able to understand that they might have a slightly different agenda or a slightly different set of priorities. And so being able to communicate with a number of partners across the industry or across your team, being able to speak to the creative team and then turn around and speak to research and development. It's two very different sets of vocabulary, frankly, that you're going to be able to use. But it's really important, and brands like to see that you have experience working across different areas of a business and being able to optimize those relationships to really drive your sales and drive your business. Experience perhaps working with or managing a creative agency. A lot of luxury brands have outside agencies, and there was a question that was posed about sort of what happens in-house versus what gets outsourced. Oftentimes, luxury brands will outsource, whether it's digital buys, it might be their traditional print and TV advertising buys out to an agency. They might outsource the entire digital strategy if they don't actually have a digital team in-house. It really does depend. They might outsource their public relations efforts through an agency, but those are just some of the things and some of the agencies that you might be expected to manage or work with as a luxury marketer. Passion for the industry. The luxury marketing business is one that is competitive. It really relies on strong brand equity and brand awareness. And unlike traditional consumer products, you're not competing necessarily on price. If a customer has the willingness and she's not price sensitive and she's willing to spend $2,000 on a handbag, she has a few options. And so she's buying your brand because she's bought into the overall brand experience, the in-store experience, obviously the quality, but she's not thinking about price. Whereas the mom who's a busy mom and with 3 children going to buy laundry detergent might be more so inclined to choose all over Tide because it's less expensive. And she got a better value. So, having a passion for the industry is really important. In beauty, it's a very competitive industry, very launch heavy. There are a number of new players and emerging brands that are coming up in the beauty industry. And so it's really important to, not only love the products that are being sold, but really love the consumer behavior and think about what it is that's going to drive that business and how you can help that business be successful. And as a result, having a sensitivity to and awareness of the cues that are often most present and most important in luxury, like quality, like image, like voice or tone. And when I say voice or tone, I mean just a very simple example of complementary. You might use the word complimentary instead of free. You might use deluxe size as a deluxe trial as opposed to sample. Really thinking about some of the ways that luxury brands speak about their products and being able to use that same tone of voice when you're communicating with them in an interview setting. As I mentioned, the ability to analyze consumer and competitive data and to identify trends, and ultimately really strong communication and presentation skills. You're often in the position of convincing or selling an idea to your cross-functional team members to get your project on, as a priority on their agenda, or you're selling it to your retailer partners. So you might every season be responsible for presenting the new launches to a Macy's or to a Saks, and really being strong in your communication and your presentation skills is very important. And so as we think about making the transition, some tips that I would like to offer for you, for those of you especially who are not leveraging an MBA to make that transition, really think about how you can tailor your resume to focus on keywords and concepts that are relevant. And a good way to think about this and a good way to find those keywords and concepts is to actually look at the job description that you're perhaps applying for. And think about some of the words that they're using and ways that those concepts might be relevant to the work that you've done or the work that you're doing right now, and how can you tailor that to sound more in alignment with what they're looking for. reading industry news to understand trends and really learn the vocabulary. It's so important to know what's going on in the business. Women's Wear Daily is really the foremost business news platform for fashion and for beauty and for the industry for retail. And so, subscribing to Women's Wear Daily, following them on Facebook and on Twitter and on LinkedIn, where they often will post articles and there will be discussions amongst industry professionals. It's a really great way to understand what the hot buttons are and some of the hot trends and maybe some of the more burning issues that retail and luxury executives are going through. Specifically, on Friday, Women's Wear Daily has Beauty Biz. They also do a monthly Beauty Inc. magazine. So for those of you who are specifically interested in beauty, that's a really great place to find all your beauty industry news, as well as Allure magazine. And that's more consumer-driven and very brand-driven, product-driven, new launch activity. But it's definitely a great place to find beauty news as well. The Business of Fashion is a great blog, very credible blog source that has fantastic articles and interviews with a number of industry executives in business, in fashion and in retail, both luxury and mass market. And then, other traditional business news sources like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. I would also encourage you to think about attending industry events. If you're, for example, if you do digital marketing now, but you're not working in luxury, go to some luxury marketing events because it's a great place to think about, again, how what you're doing in the digital space is relevant to luxury. And it's very likely that, what you do is very similar and can be very easily translated, just understanding what it is that those companies are looking for and what they're talking about. And then really using social networking platforms like LinkedIn, to identify sources for informational interviews. So a couple of tips on LinkedIn. Think about it as your online resume. You really want to put your best foot forward and treat it just as much as you would treat your resume. So the language that you use should be professional in nature. This is not Facebook. It should not be casual. Your picture, and I would encourage you to have one. Your picture should be a professional headshot, or something that looks as close to professional as possible. Really, putting your best face forward in that case. Make sure that you list out your career experience, everything that you've done, really focusing on some of those key buzzwords and concepts specifically related to luxury, because you'll come up in a search as a lot of headhunters and HR professionals are using LinkedIn to identify talent. And it's also a great way to again, follow brands and think about what they're up to and see what they're up to, some of the conversations that brands are having, some of the jobs that they're posting, and also for informational interviews. I get a lot of requests for people to connect with me on LinkedIn, and I have to be honest, I am very thoughtful and careful about the requests that I accept. I would encourage you to think about when you do want to reach out to someone that you don't know personally or haven't been introduced to in a professional setting, but you want to connect with them on LinkedIn, make it a point to send them a note when you're making a request to connect with them. Don't just request them blindly and indicate that they're a friend or that they're, a colleague and you've never met this person. Send them a quick note. I'm really intrigued by your career experience, your career path. I'm, currently an undergrad or I'm currently an MBA student, and I'm very interested in moving into this field or into your company and would love to connect with you and possibly set up time for an informational interview. That's going to get you a lot further than just randomly soliciting people and requesting that you connect with them on LinkedIn with no real context.